Got a lot of bubbling going on. That's what I like to see. This disgusting greenish black liquid I got here is fertilizer that any of you guys can make. And it's like the ultimate upcycling of materials we're not going to use anywhere else. Even though this stuff smells absolutely terrible, I had great results using this in my garden last year. Before I show you guys how to make this, we have to go back to the smell part, because this really does smell terrible. Make sure when you're brewing this, it's away from your house. Maybe you're at war with your neighbors, and you can do this on the property line, and they're not really going to like that. It's kind of like a form of biological warfare. And if they're downwind, you're going to be victorious. Mine's been aging about 6 months now, so it went from that really nasty smell. Now it smells exactly like cow manure. I know it's kind of weird, but I actually like that smell. Try not to touch this stuff either, and definitely don't drink it. Like I was saying, anybody can make this stuff. First thing you're going to need is some sort of container to make your brew. I started out using a 5-gallon bucket, but I found out that was not enough for my garden. So I upgraded to the 55-gallon barrel. And I just got some parts in, and I got some plastic drums. I'm actually going to make it so I can make my finished diluted fertilizer in a separate container with a hose spigot, so I can just fill up my watering can and get to work. Now it's kind of tough this time of year with nothing being green out here to show you how I make this. I usually take all the weeds that I don't want in my compost, pull them out, toss them in this bucket, and fill it halfway. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to take some of this dead grass here and fill up this bucket. And you know what? Stuff like this is also good, but we're going to talk about that later, because there's other ingredients you can use besides just weeds from the garden. I should have done this before the snow, because I do need to weed out these raspberries, and I got a lot of this different weed growth in here that needs to come out that's staying green. I see green, I think nitrogen, and that is an important part of any fertilizer. The great part about this is there is no concern about seeds or roots with this, because we are going to liquefy them all. If you're doing this in the spring and summer, it would take you less than 5 minutes to fill this bucket up halfway. Two of my favorites are dandelions and thistles. I did a video in the past on how to beat thistles. I got rid of about 99% of all the thistles in my garden, so I'm going to put that link in the description. For some reason, people don't want to defeat the thistles. Not many people watch that video. But I turned them thistles into this great fertilizer. That's good, because even though they're thistles, we don't want them to go to waste. You can do it. Make sure you get the roots, because that's where these things store a lot of the energy, and we're trying to harvest that. There's no need to chop any of this up. It's not necessary. Now, besides some plants like the burdocks and the pokeweeds that regenerate fairly quickly, I'm not going to be harvesting from my wooded areas. I'm going to leave that alone. I like taking stuff out of the garden, turning it into something useful that I could put back into the garden. I'm just taking this stuff for this video. With my bucket half full or half empty, you decide. It's time to add some water to it. Check out my rainwater collection system I got going on here. If a storm takes your gutter off and you don't fix it right away, you can take a 5-gallon bucket and set it down here and catch some great water. So I got my water, I got my half bucket of weeds and leaves. I'm going to take this water, I'm going to fill up this bucket about 3/4 of the way. So we got a nice fill going on. One thing you're going to need for this is a really nice stick to stir this. Give it a good stir to start it out, to get some of these weeds down. Some people take a rock or something to hold them down. I really don't find that necessary. They start to sink down to the bottom once they start rotting. But give it a nice stir. You're going to take this bucket and put it in a nice warm sunny area for about 2 weeks. And every 2 or 3 days or so, come out here, give her a nice stir, and you're going to notice this water is going to start to turn black. That warm sunny area, that just speeds up the process. You can come out here like I am right now in the winter and get started on this, and when it gets warmer in the spring, it'll speed up. But it's still going to work during the winter because nature doesn't sleep. So after about 2 weeks, be ready to take this, and you can get some kind of scooper like this jug here with the top cut off, dip it in, and just get the liquid out. You can keep adding more water to this and keep filling it up, and this stuff will keep rotting in here, and you'll keep getting fertilizer from it. So now that we know how to make this stuff, I think we need to talk about it a little more, because I was doing some research on the internet, and there's a lot of negative feedback on this, and I'm not sure why. So even though this worked really good for me, when I'm making a video, I think it's only responsible for me to do some extra research to see what others think about stuff, especially if someone's doing it better. I want to bring you that info as well. And I did come across some really good information on this. If you check out David the Good's channel, his system of doing this is a lot better than mine. Basically doing the same thing. This worked great for me, had great results, worked great for him, but I made a mistake of going on my favorite search engine and looking there. Lots of articles popped up saying this does not work. But let me tell you why this works. I have seen it work. You can't tell me something I've seen work doesn't work. There was one website especially that I found that was so terrible that I might make a video about it. I'm not going to name any names on it, but it's just this website about gardening myths, and it goes through all this stuff that I know works, and they just say it's garbage and it doesn't work. I think that's bad information to give to the public, because experimenting is very important. And if somebody wants to try something and they don't because they read it on the internet that doesn't work, they might miss out on some great results. Another big complaint I'm seeing is there's no scientific research to back up this information. But there's a lot of stuff with no scientific research to back up the information. Who's doing studies on weed tea? Me. In my garden. I'll take that $10 million grant. Another good one. There's no nutritional value in this. Okay, explain this to me. If I'm taking these weeds, some of them that are deep rooted, that go down and suck up nutrients from the soil and store them in their roots and in the body of the plant, and I put them in water and they turn into soup, where are those nutrients going? They're going into the water. That's why the water's turning black. Some people are saying don't use it as fertilizer because you don't know the NPK of it. When you buy fertilizer from the store, they're giving you the NPK. There have been some tests by people on this, and it averages out to like 374 for the NPK levels of this, which is not too bad. It's on par with a lot of standard granulated fertilizers. Myself, using something like this weed tea here, I'm not really concerned with NPK. I don't do soil tests. I like taking these nutrients, giving them to my plants. If they want to use them, they can. If they want to waste them, they can. It's not costing me any money to do this. And maybe if the plants don't use them, something else in the soil will. Another problem people have with this is this process is anaerobic. Don't expect any microorganisms or stuff like that to live in here. I'm sure some will, but for the most part, unlike composting, you're going to get a lot of anaerobic activity in here. This is mostly about nutrients, not microorganisms. David the Good really touched on this, so I want to bring it up. If you have microorganisms that live in an aquatic environment, like this barrel over here, or like the ones in your compost, you're putting this stuff out into your garden, at some point it's drying out. They're all going to die. They're aquatic. Soil's not aquatic unless it's really wet, and your plants might not like that anyway. I'm going to put a link to his video in the description because I think you guys should watch that. So I know this works. I haven't put as much thought of it into as he has, but he's put a lot of thought into it, and he can explain his stuff a lot better than me. I'll give you some intriguing details on this. And this is what I really liked about his video. He takes the weed tea and cranks it up a notch. He puts pretty much everything in there. He puts chicken guts, weeds, manure, pretty much anything that was once living or came out of a living thing could be put inside here. Who's ready for breakfast? Smells delicious. One thing I do a little different than everyone else is I don't cover mine, and I use a metal barrel. Most people use plastic. A lot of leaves from the trees fall in here, which is not a bad thing. Mosquitoes can breed in here. Don't care. When you got about 1 trillion mosquitoes in your yard in Michigan, another billion or so is not going to matter. So I am a big fan of composting, and I look at this method as just another weapon in the arsenal. It is really nice to have liquid fertilizer, and the best part is having it for free. Instead of throwing everything into the compost bin, take some of that stuff, toss it in here, fill it with water, and let it rot and stink out your neighbors. No, I'm not the only one that does this, so talk to me in the comments if you do the same thing. Do you dilute your mixture? Lay it on thick? Positive results? Negatives? Want to hear it all. Not an expert, but I know a good thing when I see it. When I see a good thing, I want to bring it to you guys, and especially when it's a free thing. Gardening is too expensive. We need to make it cheaper on ourselves. We're trying to grow food here for cheap. We're trying to beat the grocery store prices. Fertilizer is really expensive, but not this. I'll be bringing you guys more gardening hacks and money-saving tips as the season progresses. But for now, thanks for watching.